Hello, everyone. Gemma and Jeff here.
Hi. Have you ever heard a story so unbelievable you just knew it had to be exaggerated?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, get ready because today we're diving into a tale that'll make you question if something's even possible.
All right. I'm intrigued.
We're talking about Joseph Samuel,
Okay.
a man who seemingly cheated death. Not once, not twice, but 3 times.
Whoa, 3 times. That's a lot of cheating death. What happened?
It's a story that pushes the limits of what we think is possible, but it happened in a really interesting time and place. Early 19th century Australia. Imagine Sydney Cove.
Yeah.
Not as a bustling city, but as a really harsh penal colony carved out of the wilderness.
Right. Back when it was still being used to send convicts.
Isolation itself was the punishment, and the environment, totally unforgiving.
So not exactly a vacation spot for those sent there.
Definitely not. Think cramped ships bringing people convicted of crimes to this far corner of the world,
Ships like...
like the Nile,
Okay.
the Canada, and the Minorca.
Gotcha. So these convicts, they arrived with little hope of returning home.
Yeah.
And, just surviving was difficult. So escape, pretty much impossible.
Pretty much. So where does Joseph Samuel fit into all of this?
Well, Joseph Samuel was convicted of robbery back in 1795,
Okay.
transported to Australia in 1801. He managed to escape,
Oh, wow.
which was daring enough.
Yeah.
But then he formed a gang,
Okay.
and they committed another robbery. And this one tragically resulted in the death of a policeman.
Oh, no. Who was the policeman?
His name was Joseph Luker.
That's a serious turn of events. Did they catch the whole gang?
Well, the other gang members, they were actually acquitted because of lack of evidence.
Really?
But there was an eyewitness who identified Samuel,
Oh.
which led to his conviction. He confessed to the robbery, but insisted he wasn't responsible for the policeman's death.
So even though he's claiming innocence in the murder, he's still facing serious charges because of the robbery and his escape.
Yeah.
What happened next?
He was sentenced to death by hanging.
Oh, wow.
And, it's important to remember this wasn't the quick drop method
Right.
that we think of today.
Yeah.
It was, back then, slow strangulation,
Oh, jeez.
using these thick 5-hemp ropes, capable of holding over 1,000 pounds for 5 minutes.
That sounds brutal. Knowing that, it makes what happened next even harder to believe.
You're telling me, September 26, 1803, in Parramatta, hundreds of people gathered to witness the execution. As the cart pulled away, the unthinkable happened.
Oh, no.
The rope snapped.
What?
Samuel fell. Sprained his ankle, but he was alive.
Are you serious?
I am. Can you imagine that, the shock, the disbelief that must have rippled through that crowd?
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, just one rope, though, right? There had to be a backup plan for this kind of thing.
Right, of course. The executioner, he grabs another 5-hemp rope, gets Samuel back on the cart, and tries again. But get this.
What? Don't tell me.
The noose slips off his neck.
No way.
I kid you not. His boots actually touch the ground.
Twice. That's insane. What was the crowd's reaction at this point?
Well, at this point, the crowd is in a frenzy. They start calling for Samuel's release, seeing this whole thing as a sign from God.
Wow.
But the executioner, he's, let's just say, incredibly meticulous now.
Yeah, I bet.
Repositions the cart, tightens the noose for a third attempt.
Don't tell me. The third rope broke, too.
You guessed it. The rope snaps again. And this sends the crowd into utter chaos. Some are seeing it as a clear sign of divine intervention, while others, they're probably just baffled at this point. A policeman on horseback has to intervene, summons the governor to come deal with this whole unprecedented situation. So there you have it, a chaotic execution.
Talk about a tough spot. What a situation. You've got a man convicted of a serious crime, but you've also got these impossible events, shaking everyone to their core. What'd he do?
Well, he chose to commute Samuel's sentence to life imprisonment. Seems like he saw the 3 broken ropes, if not a sign from God, that at least is something extraordinary.
Wow, that's a bold move. Think about it. Instead of execution, Samuel gets life behind bars. I'm guessing some people weren't too happy about that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Some people argued he caved to public pressure.
Yeah. How did he react to this whole crazy turn of events?
That's where the historical record goes a little quiet.
Yeah.
We know he died in prison in 1806.
Okay, so 3 years later?
Yeah. But we don't have his personal account, his thoughts on cheating death, or what he thought about the justice system. The same system that condemned him, but then spared him.
And it's so frustrating to have these gaps in such a wild story. It makes you wonder, right? What about the ropes themselves? Any theories beyond them just being faulty? Did anyone think about foul play?
Well, there were whispers, of course.
Yeah.
Some thought someone tampered with them. Maybe someone who liked Samuel,
Right, like a sympathizer.
Exactly. Or even someone, working within the prison.
Interesting.
But they never found evidence of sabotage. And remember, the governor checked the ropes himself. This is where it gets really interesting. Historians have come up with some alternative theories, focusing on things that might have weakened the ropes without anyone, intentionally messing with them. For instance, what if the ropes were stored wrong?
Oh, okay, like improperly stored.
Yeah, maybe exposed to moisture or even pests. That kind of thing could have made them weaker.
I hadn't thought of that. What about the weather? Could that have played a role? Like if it was super hot or humid?
Thinking about these things just shows how many possibilities there could have been.
So we're left with this mystery, right? 3 ropes. A man surviving certain death. A crowd thinking it's God's will. A governor changing a man's fate.
The crowd's reaction is really one of the most fascinating parts of all of this. They weren't just watching, they were participating. Their emotions, their beliefs, they shaped how things played out.
That's true. They went from excited to shocked to not believing their eyes to then almost like this religious fervor.
Exactly. Their calls for Samuel's release getting louder. Their certainty that he was innocent of a capital crime. It says a lot about the power of collective belief, especially in a society that was so deeply religious and believed in things like divine intervention.
It's like those broken ropes became this symbol of their hopes and fears, their ideas of right and wrong, and then that belief that something bigger was happening that ultimately swayed the governor.
You got it. It really shows how history isn't just dates and facts. It's about the people, their beliefs, and how those shape their world. And even though we don't know much about Samuel after his near-death experience, there's still a lot we can learn.
What stands out to you looking at this story as a whole?
It's a story about resilience, about beating the odds, but it also reminds us how unpredictable life can be. Even when something miraculous happens, life doesn't always go as planned.
Well said. Back to early Australia, the 3 escapes from death and those broken ropes. What happened next? How did Samuel live after his sentence was changed?
It's a good question, but sadly, we don't know much about his life after those execution attempts.
Really?
Yeah, we know he lived another 3 years,
Okay.
dying in prison in 1806. But that's about it.
It's like the story just stops right when it gets really interesting.
But yeah, think about it. To be that close to death 3 times
Hmm.
and then boom, back to life. It must have felt crazy.
Yeah.
Did it give him a new purpose or just tons of uncertainty?
Then those last few years in prison, that couldn't have been easy.
Not at all. Prison back then, brutal. Overcrowding, sickness, punishments. So even though he escaped hanging, life wasn't a picnic.
It makes you realize that surviving isn't always a happy ending. Sometimes it's just the start of a whole new set of problems.
Exactly. And that's what I think is so powerful about Joseph Samuel's story. It's about resilience, beating the odds. But also, it shows us how unpredictable life is. Even when amazing things happen, our path isn't always clear.
That's a great point. As we wrap up, I feel a mix of amazement and curiosity. Amazement at those ropes and curiosity about Samuel himself. Too bad we'll never know everything.
I agree. Okay, so we've heard both of their stories, John Lee and Joseph Samuel, but who do you think really embodies the man they couldn't hang?
Ooh, tough one. I mean, Lee's case, everything seemed to be working fine, but it just wouldn't hang him.
Right.
But Samuel's case, there were those rope malfunctions, which could have been anything, really. Different situations, both incredible.
Yeah, that's true. I've got to say, I feel like Joseph Samuel deserves the title, the man they couldn't hang, even more,
Really? Why?
Well, because according to the crowd who was there, he had God on his side.
What are your thoughts? What parts of this whole thing stood out to you? We'd love to hear from you.
Was he just incredibly lucky? Did he get away with murder? Let me know what you think. See you on the next The Mystery of...
Thanks for joining us.